brutal truth from Wayne Dyer, you're doing it wrong. Almost everything we've been told about how to live a meaningful, successful, or even peaceful life is fundamentally flawed. That's what Wayne Dyer tried to show us, not with anger, not with judgment, but with a kind of piercing clarity that feels like truth whispering through the noise. And the brutal truth is, you and I, we're doing it wrong. Not because we're bad or lazy or lost, but because we've been trained, conditioned to chase the wrong things, to believe in illusions, and to measure our worth using tools that were never meant for the soul. We've bought into a collective hypnosis that says, you are what you accomplish, but you are what others think of you. You are what you own. But Dyer's wisdom tears through all that. He shows us that we've built our lives on foundations of sand and then wondered why they crumble under the weight of stress, fear, and emptiness. Let's ask the question that Dyer asked so many times in so many ways: who would you be if you stopped needing to be someone? That question alone disrupts everything. Because most of us are not living, we're performing. We're performing for approval, for validation, for identity. We wake up each morning and unconsciously step into a role: the achiever, the parent, the failure, the victim, the winner. And we act out that role, hoping that if we play it well enough, we'll finally feel complete. But Dyer says, stop. Just stop, because you're not that role. You never were. You're not your resume, your trauma, your image, or your follower count. You are a timeless piece of the infinite trying to remember itself. Anything less is a lie you've been sold.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. The reason we're miserable isn't because life is hard, it's because we're attached. Attached to outcomes, to opinions, and to our own egoic narrative. We think success will save us, that love from others will validate us, and that control will keep us safe. But it never works. We get the job and still feel hollow. We get the relationship and still feel insecure. We get the money and still feel like it's never enough. Why? Because we're chasing shadows on the wall, not the light behind them. Dyer's brutal truth is simple: you've been looking in the wrong direction. The peace you're seeking isn't out there, it's already inside you. But you can't access it while you're obsessed with becoming someone you're not. Dyer called this the shift from ambition to meaning, from striving to surrender, from fear to love. And it requires a total rewiring of how we approach life. The old model says, do more, get more, be more. The new model says, let go, return. Remember, it's not about adding something new to yourself, it's about removing what was never you to begin with. That means letting go of comparison, competition, and control. It means beginning to live from a place of connection to source, to self, to others, not from separation. Imagine this: what if your worth was not something to be earned, but something to be revealed? What if your purpose wasn't something you had to chase, but something that naturally unfolded the moment you got out of your own way? But the ego hates this. It wants you to keep striving. It wants you to believe that fulfillment is always just one achievement away. It whispers lies like, once I get this, I'll be happy. Once they approve of me, I'll feel enough. Once I fix myself, I'll be whole. But Dyer saw through this. He said, you don't need to be better. You just need to be you, without the masks, without the fear, without the guilt. That's the brutal truth. You're not broken, you're just blocked. And the blockage is the belief that you're not already connected to something greater, something eternal. So I'm asking you right now to get brutally honest with yourself. What are you chasing that you think will finally make you feel worthy? Whose approval are you still seeking? What part of yourself have you disowned, believing it wasn't good enough? What if you stopped running? What if you turned inward instead of outward? That's the journey Dyer invites us to take. And it begins with just one moment of truth, one moment where you look in the mirror and say, maybe everything I thought I needed, I already am. And the hidden lie of success, why chasing more leaves you with less. We've been sold a story so deeply embedded in our culture that we rarely stop to question it, than the story of success. It starts early. We're told to get the grades, get into the right school, land the prestigious job, climb the ladder, buy the house, build the brand, and win. But Wayne Dyer stood before this story and said clearly, you're doing it wrong. Not because ambition is evil or because wanting to grow is misguided, but because the version of success we've been conditioned to chase is hollow. It's a treadmill dressed up as a mountain. You think you're climbing, but you're actually spinning in place, more exhausted, more anxious, more disconnected from who you really are. Here's the core of the lie, the belief that more will make you feel better. More money, more followers, more recognition, more stuff. But Dyer dismantled that illusion with one brutal insight: you can never get enough of what you don't really need. Think about that. When you're operating from lack, when you believe you're not enough, you can achieve, accumulate, and accomplish all you want, and still feel empty. Because the hunger isn't physical, it's spiritual. You're not starving for success, you're starving for connection. To yourself, to others, to something deeper. Have you noticed how success often comes with more anxiety, not less? More expectations, more fear of losing it, more pressure to perform. Because if your identity is built on achievement, then failure becomes a kind of death. You're only as good as your last win. You're constantly comparing, constantly doubting, constantly checking if you're still ahead. But Dyer would ask, ahead of what? Or worse, ahead of who? The moment success becomes a contest, you've already lost the point. Because now your joy depends on being better than someone else. And that's not joy, it's ego. Dyer offered a radical alternative. He said true success is not about what you accumulate, but about what you align with. It's not about climbing the ladder, it's about asking whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. Are you pursuing goals that actually reflect your soul? Or are you chasing what the world told you would impress others? This is where most people get trapped. They reach the top, look around, and realize they never wanted to be there. They were living someone else's dream. Or worse, they forgot to dream for themselves altogether. So you have to ask yourself, what does success mean to me really? Strip away the noise. Forget the metrics. Forget the titles. What if success was waking up with peace in your heart? What if it was knowing you're living in alignment with your values? What if it was feeling love without needing approval? What if it was creating without fear, giving without expectation, existing without apology? That's the success Dyer pointed to. A success that can't be measured by numbers but by depth, by meaning, by presence. And here's the most profound part: when you stop chasing the wrong kind of success, the right kind of success comes naturally. You no longer hustle for validation, you radiate authenticity. You no longer compete, you connect. You no longer grind out of fear, you create from love. Ironically, when you stop trying to be someone, you become someone truly powerful because you're no longer acting from lack, but from wholeness. Wayne Dyer didn't say don't strive. He said strive differently. Shift from ambition to intention, from control to surrender, from ego to essence. And when you do that, success doesn't make you, it reveals you. It doesn't impress others, it expresses truth. So ask yourself, is the life I'm building a reflection of my soul or just a reaction to my fear? Because the deeper you go into that question, the more you'll see that the version of success we've idolized might just be the thing keeping us from the life we actually want. The real you is not who you think, escaping the ego's illusion of identity. If you were to strip away your name, your job, your history, your achievements, what would be left? Who would you be without the roles you play? This is the question Wayne Dyer kept returning to again and again because it cuts through every illusion we've built around identity. And here's the brutal truth he offered. The person you think you are is not the real you. It's a construct, a mask, a story the ego has written to protect itself. And as long as you believe that this identity is who you truly are, you will live in fear of being exposed, rejected, outperformed, or forgotten. But once you see through the illusion, you begin to taste a freedom that can't be taken from you. Let's break this down. From the moment we're born, we're handed labels. You're a daughter, a student, a winner, a failure, a certain race, gender, nationality. These labels become our identity scaffolding. We build our self-worth around them, defend them, and cling to them. But over time, we forget that these are just labels. We start to believe, I am this identity. And so, when life challenges that identity, when we lose a job, a relationship, a title, we feel shattered. Not just sad, but lost, because we've mistaken the mask for the face. Wayne Dyer's message was radically liberating. You are not the roles you play. You are not your past. You are not your thoughts. You are something far deeper, an awareness that exists before any thought even arises, or a presence, a being, consciousness itself. And the ego hates this, because if you're not your story, the ego loses control. It can no longer manipulate you with fear, shame, or pride. It can't keep you stuck in the loop of proving yourself or defending yourself. That's why this realization is so threatening and also so necessary. The ego's favorite trick is to convince you that your value is conditional, that you are only enough if you're successful, attractive, intelligent, liked. And because those conditions are always shifting, your sense of self becomes fragile. You live in constant fear of not measuring up. But the deeper truth is, you were enough before you did anything, before you became someone, before you were praised or criticized. You were already whole. And remembering that is not arrogance, it's awakening. So how do we escape the ego's illusion? We start by observing. Pay attention to the voice in your head that says, I should be more. I'm not good enough. They don't respect me. I have to prove them wrong. Who is speaking? Who is listening? That moment of awareness is the crack in the illusion. The more you watch the ego, the less power it has. You begin to see its patterns, how it attaches to drama, how it feeds on comparison, how it fears stillness. And in that awareness, you start to disidentify. You stop reacting. You start choosing. Dyer often said, "You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience." That one sentence flips everything. It means you're not here to collect trophies or avoid failure. You're here to remember, to awaken, to be, and that being is not small or broken or inadequate. It's infinite, timeless, untouchable. When you live from that space, you don't need to compete. You don't need to impress. You don't even need to explain. You simply are. And in that being, you become magnetic, peaceful, unshakable, real. So ask yourself, what part of your identity are you most afraid to lose? And then ask, who would I be without that fear? That's where the real you lives. Not in your image, but in your essence. Not in performance, but in presence. And the more you reconnect with that truth, the less the world can shake you. Because you're no longer playing the ego's game. You've remembered the truth. You are already free. The power of inner alignment, living from the inside out, not the outside in, there comes a point, often after exhaustion, disappointment, or some personal collapse, when we finally ask ourselves, what if I've been looking in the wrong direction all along? Wayne Dyer called this the turning point. The moment we stop trying to shape our lives from the outside in and start aligning from the inside out. And this shift, though subtle, changes everything. Because when your inner world is chaotic, no amount of external success will bring peace. But when your inner world is aligned, calm, clear, connected, then the outside becomes a reflection, not a dictator. You reclaim your power, not by controlling the world, but by mastering your response to it. So much of our suffering comes from outsourcing our sense of value. We let the world tell us who we are. We live on feedback loops of approval, validation, and comparison. We let likes define our worth. We let rejection define our identity. We let noise drown out our own inner knowing. But Dyer reminded us, you don't need the world to agree with you to be at peace. You just need to be in alignment. And that alignment isn't something you find, it's something you return to. It's already within you, buried under layers of conditioning and fear. Living from the inside out means making decisions based on your inner truth, not external pressure. It means asking, does this feel like love, or does this feel like fear? Before you say yes to anything. It means prioritizing peace over performance, intuition over image, purpose over popularity. And yes, this path is harder at first, because the world will still shout at you. It will still tempt you with quick wins and loud applause. But the more you tune into your inner compass, the less those distractions can pull you off course. This is the essence of spiritual maturity, when you stop reacting to life and start responding from your center. You stop chasing. You start allowing. You stop forcing. You start flowing. You're no longer a puppet of circumstances, but you become a co-creator. And in that space, miracles unfold not because they're handed to you, but because you're finally aligned to receive what's meant for you. Dyer said, abundance is not something we acquire, but it is something we tune into. That's the truth most of us miss. Whether it's love, joy, purpose, or clarity, it's not out there. It's already within you, waiting for your attention, waiting for your return. And once you live from that space, your entire experience shifts. You stop trying to fix everything and instead begin to feel everything. You stop needing answers and start trusting the process. You stop trying to be someone and start being you. So here's the final question Dyer would leave us with. What would your life look like if you stopped living for the world and started living from your soul? That's not just an idea, it's an invitation to step off the treadmill, to realign, to return. Because the brutal truth is, you've never been broken. You've just been looking in the wrong direction. And now you know the way back.